Ladies and gentlemen, if you are able, would you please rise for the presentation of the colors and the invocation. Veterans and active duty military and first responders, please render a hand salute as the national ensign approaches. As the national ensign is now in place, Miss Kimberly Aarons Dixon will sing our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Order. Order.
Thank you, Kimberly. Ladies and gentlemen, as the Nevada Veterans Coalition Color Guard departs, I'd like to point out that this outstanding group of men and women provide military services at the Northern Nevada Veterans Memorial Cemetery in Fernley. They're all volunteers, and they give our fallen veterans and the solemn military service they have earned as they are transferred to the staff of the Supreme Commander. I'm now pleased to introduce our VVA Chapter 989 Chaplain, Colonel Susan Malone, United States Marine Corps retired, with our invocation. Madam Chaplain.
Uncover. Almighty God, creator and sustainer of all life, we ask that your blessings may descend upon us as we gather this Remembrance Day to honor Vietnam veterans and all veterans who served. Once again, we meet as citizens to stand together with reverence to honor veterans who have made the ultimate sacrifice. Gracious God, we pause in sadness to mourn their passing. They were the best and the brightest of us. Their spirit, their laughter, their smiling faces are sorely missed by their friends, their families, and by us. We thank you for this opportunity to once more in freedom assemble to honor them and all veterans of our nation's armed forces. May we never forget those who made the supreme sacrifice to secure for our nation the blessings of life, liberty, and justice for all. May our observance be a timely reminder of our freedom that was purchased at a high cost and should not be taken for granted. Bless the families and friends of those we honor today. and bless the veterans who have come with memories, stories, and tears to enrich this day. We beseech you, O God, to shield and protect our armed forces in the air, on land, and sea. Lord God of hosts, whose power and authority is from everlasting to everlasting, keep under your protective care the armed forces of the United States of America and all who serve therein. Grant that they may be a sure defense and a safeguard for the people of the United States. Almighty God, we pray you keep these United States and our veterans, our fallen, our Vietnam comrades, our POWs, our MIAs, and all their families in your holy protection. Amen.
Thank you, Madam Chaplain. Please be seated. This day, March 29th, has been independently celebrated in a few states since 1973, as it's also the day of the last known 591 American prisoners of war made safe return during Operation Homecoming. 114 died in captivity. And then this day, 52 years ago, it was then that American troops withdrew from battle in 1973, and the day the post-war war began. Nationally, March 29th is recognized as the one-time event by President Obama when he proclaimed the 50th anniversary in 2012 as Vietnam War Veteran Day. President Trump signed Vietnam War Veterans Recognition Act in 2017 on March 20th that year, officially marking March 29th as National Vietnam War Veterans Day. He also announced that the U.S. flag should be flown that day. Our custom, VVA 989, in remembrance on this day, since 2019 here in Reno, is in keeping with one of the Vietnam veterans of America's founding principles: never again will one generation of veterans abandon another. Today, as we remember all those veterans who preceded us and those who have followed us in defense of this great nation, we're pleased that you've joined us as we reaffirm our remembrance of those who have served, and we remember the Gold Star families who suffered the losses they have known, and the horror and the honor and sacrifice that they give our lost. This year, the wreath placing will again be done with the assistance of the Patriot Guard Riders. Their motto is, "Standing for those who stood for us." We thank them for being here, as they have been for years past. Presenting the first wreath for Gold Star families is Mr. Jeff Evans, a Gold Star nephew, Gold Star son, and Gold Star brother. We'll hear much more from him a bit later. The wreath reads, "In our hearts, never forgotten." Thank you, Jeff. Posting the wreath for all veterans today is Colonel Mary Devine, who's just completing her first year as director of the Nevada Department of Veteran Services, and Mr. Don Hinkle, Reno High School graduate, United States Coast Guard veteran of the Battle of Okinawa. The 80th anniversary of the battle, codenamed Operation Iceberg, is Tuesday, April 1st, and the battle lasted until June 22nd of that year. It was the last major battle in the Pacific Theater. Director Devine and Mr. Hinkle are also symbolically accompanied by World War II, Korea, and Vietnam veteran Master Gunnery Sergeant Robert Russell, United States Marine Corps, retired. And he is here with his wife, Judy, and they've joined us today from their home in Gardnerville. And they're seated right here. And behind Master Guns, we have a group that has joined us from the Northern Nevada State Veterans Home, back in the back. They are veterans representing many different conflicts, currently residing in Sparks. I think they need a hand. The All Veterans wreath reads, respect, honor, and gratitude. Thank you, Director Devine, Mr. Hinkle, and Master Guns Russell. Thank you for joining us today. And to our brothers, sisters from the Veterans Home, thanks again. Wally, the Marine, president of that organization, and the rest of you, thank you for your service. Presenting our third wreath for Iraq and Afghanistan are veterans of those campaigns with 7 combat tours between them, Colonel Scott Hooper, Colonel Kay Hooper, both United States Army retired. Both are co-founders of Horsemanship for Heroes, providing equine therapy for first responders and veterans with PTSD here in Northern Nevada. The Iraq and Afghanistan wreath reads, thank you for defending our freedom. Thank you, Colonel Hooper and Colonel Hooper and PGR. Posting our wreath for Vietnam veterans, our Navy Cross and Purple Heart recipient, and VVA chapter members, Lieutenant Colonel George Malone, United States Marine Corps retired, and chapter member and radarman first class Stanley Gooden, United States Navy veteran and crew member of the destroyer USS Benner, DD-807. And he was in the Tonkin Gulf from 1966 to 1968. Fire control missions north and south of the DMZ. The wreath reads, saluting our Vietnam veterans, welcome home. Thank you, Colonel Malone. Thank you, Radarman Gooden. Ladies and gentlemen, representing TMCC's Veterans and Family Services is Staff Sergeant Greg Hillman, United States Marine Corps veteran and member of TMCC's Weight of the Fallen Ruckers. He has a presentation with the ceremonial dog tags representing the fallen from Iraq and Afghanistan, and more recently, the fallen from Vietnam. Welcome, Mr. Hillman. Sergeant. Thank you, sir. Good to see you, brother.
Hi, thank you so much. I am so honored to be here with you all today. Thank you so much for being here. Coming together like this keeps the spirit of community alive and gives us an opportunity to connect, to remember our fallen together. The veterans making their way to the stage are carrying 7,000 dog tags. 57 dog tags are engraved with the names of the Nevadans who paid the ultimate price for their country during the global war on terror. 2 years ago, 151 dog tags were added to honor Vietnam veterans who also paid that price. We are forever grateful to these service members for our freedom and their willingness to serve. This year, in lieu of rucking on Memorial Day, we are adding a blank dog tag to this project. This dog tag represents a battle a lot of service members are facing daily with suicidal ideation, depression, and isolation. This tag is left blank because we hope to never have to engrave another name on it. We hope that coming together as a nation of communities like this one will work to prevent another service member from losing their battle here or at home. As we place these dog tags on the stage, I want you to look around at your community. If you're able, try and make some good connections today. Let's honor those who are lost together by building each other up. Help us to not add to the weight of the fallen. While we are honored to bear the burden of those that came before, we do not want to add a single ounce to it. I hope to get to meet all of you today and become more connected to my military-connected veterans, military-connected Chapter 35 benefit users, like Shane here, and everyone here supporting the veteran community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Staff Sergeant. And thanks to everybody that took part and taking part in the opening ceremony. It's now my pleasure to introduce an impressive list of guests that we have here today. And my apologies to those of you that I may have missed or sitting in a different seat that you were assigned because you didn't want to sit next to the judge, Wes. But today, my apologies again if I miss your name. Ms. Chai Cook, she is Director of Nevada Veterans Services at UNR. Mr. Kyle Koryagi, CEO of Liberty Dogs. Christopher DeHeer, did he make it? Nope. Colonel Mary Devine, Director of NDVS. One of our speakers, Colonel Jackson T. Doan, United States Marine Corps, and his wife Venus have joined us from Pickle Meadows. Miss Julie Dudley, State Veterans Home. Mr. Wes Duncan, Spark City Attorney. Mr. Jeff Evans, who you've met and you'll meet again. Deputy Director Ro Ferrer from NDVS Benefits. I think Ken Gray was going to try and make it for a bit. I don't know if he made it. Brigadier General Robert Hipwell, good to see you, sir. Glad we didn't have it. Sorry, didn't have a chance to see you earlier. Here's one. It's a ringer. First Lieutenant Andy Lepilbut, Distinguished Service Cross, 2 Silver Stars, Purple Heart, Army Commendation Medal, Combat Infantryman's Badge, Chapter 989, Big Man on Campus, my friend, and the most decorated veteran in the state of Nevada, Andy Lepilbut. Colonel John Lope, United States Marine Corps and United States Army, retired. Colonel Thomas Luciano, was he? Colonel Susan Malone, United States Marine Corps, retired. I think we need to hold our applause until I'm done or until Elvis has left the building. So, thank you. Pay that guy. Deputy Director Mark McBride, NDVS. One of our speakers, Dr. Spring Melody Myers. Assemblyman P.K. O'Neill was able to make it. Honorable Judge. See the way that happened? You didn't. Honorable Judge Shelley O'Neill. She's the lady that runs the court for veterans, and a nice lady. And if you've got a DUI, you probably need to see her, but she's here. Thank you for coming, ma'am. Brigadier General Michael Pearl. He's Nevada National Guard retired and big man on campus here, the Director of Finance and Community Relations for TMCC. Commander John Ostrander, United States Navy Reserve, retired. Commander Ostrander is also chairman of the board of VVA 989. Do we have anybody from Senator Rosen's office? No. Mr. David Souza is here, state adjutant for the VFW and big man on campus in Sparks, et cetera, et cetera. Thanks for coming, David. And I see you brought your best girl, Shirley. Excellent. Miss Natalie Stirring, Director of Nation's Finest. Director Thomas Telemonte from the Reno VA. He is the director there. Senator Angie Taylor, was she able to make it? Brigadier General Dan Waters, the Adjutant General for the state of Nevada. You'll be hearing lots from him. State Commander of the VFW and big man on campus, all around good guy, Jerome Washington. Ms. Kim Weingartner, founder of the Katie Grace Foundation. And last but certainly not least, Sergeant Major Kerry Wells, Sergeant Major at Pickle Meadows, the guy that makes things happen. So I'd also like to point out that Captain Sam Brown is joining us today from commuting back and forth from Reno to Washington. I don't know what's on his mind and what he finds back there interesting, but he has joined us with his lovely wife, Amy. Did you bring the kids? Where are they seated? Did you bring the kids? No, just two? Anyways, so now's the time to let everybody know you appreciate them coming. I have an impressive collection of proclamations, letters, and recognitions to our event today, including one which I'd like to have read aloud. This was something that just occurred like yesterday, and it's from the Secretary of the VA in Washington, and it's signed by the Honorable Douglas A. Collins, and I've asked the local director of our VA facility, Director Thomas Telemonte, to come up and share the letter with you. And with that, Director, please.
Good to see you. Good to see you too. So, good afternoon, everybody. So, a point of clarification, I was voluntold to be up here and read this. So, but it's my absolute pleasure and honor to be in front of all of you, and thank you for the invitation. So, without further ado, dear President Stafford, as our nation comes together on National Vietnam Veterans Day to honor and remember all those who served this country during the Vietnam War era, I want to especially thank all Vietnam veterans for their unyielding sense of duty to their fellow service members during the Vietnam War and their continued commitment to their fellow veterans decades after. We also remember their families who sacrificed so much. On this important day, all of us at the Department of Veterans Affairs join our country as we honor the service and sacrifice of our 9 million Vietnam veterans. We will never forget the more than 58,000 brave souls whose names are etched into the Vietnam Veterans War Memorial, those who gave their full measure of devotion, fighting in Vietnam. We will never forget the nearly 1,600 still missing and unaccounted for. America is the greatest nation on earth because of heroes like you who have the courage to step forward to defend and protect the rights of freedoms we all hold so dear. I know that members of the Vietnam Veterans of America Sierra Nevada Chapter 989 are working tirelessly to serve Vietnam veterans and all Americans and their families. Thank you for your dedicated service and support to our nation's veterans. As we celebrate the selfless service, patriotism, and devotion of America's Vietnam veterans, my promise to you at VA is that the veteran is the mission and the mission is the veteran. VE always will fulfill its veterans, families, caregivers, and survivors the health care and benefits that they have earned. I am proud to join in the celebration of our Vietnam veterans. God bless you. God bless our Vietnam veterans, families, caregivers, and survivors, and may we always serve them as they have served this great nation. Sincerely, Douglas A. Collins. Thank you.
As I said, that was short notice. Call up and say, hey, would you like to read a letter in front of 400 people? Sure, why not? So now it's my pleasure to introduce a friend of VVA 989, the Adjutant General for the state of Nevada, Brigadier General D. Roger Dan Waters, with his thoughts on honor and sacrifice. And the General also brings with him a proclamation from the Governor. General Waters.
What a great honor it is to be here today. J.R. Bridgette, thank you for what you do, your service to our community. It is fantastic, and it is awe-inspiring. There's no doubt about that. Civilian Assistant to the Secretary of the Army, Malone, make sure you tell the Secretary I did a good job today. I might need that sometime. You know, I was, before I read the proclamation, I was reflecting on what J.R. said earlier. Never again. What does that mean? Well, I'll tell you, from the latest generation, from Captain Brown, Command Sergeant Major Wells, Colonel Doan, Colonel Mary Devine, Brigadier General Mike Pearl. It means our generation recognizes never again will we allow our country to not recognize the dedication and the service of those that came before us, and frankly, those that come next. Those people that I talked about, those that are currently serving and those that recently retired, they dedicated their lives to this country. They dedicated their lives to freedom, liberty, and what the United States stands for, our values. And as President Reagan said, we are the shining light on the hill that other countries look to for an example of what they can be, what they should be. Thank you all for your service, because you have set the example for what this generation stands for and how we support those that came before us. Thank you. A proclamation by the Governor. Whereas 52 years ago, on March 29, 1973, the last 2,500 American troops were withdrawn from Vietnam, and in 2017, federal legislation was signed into law declaring March 29th as a national day of remembrance to honor Vietnam War veterans. And whereas we focused our thoughts and prayers on the families of the more than 58,000 individuals who served our country and never returned home. Whereas we pay our humble respects to those who were held as prisoners of war. Whereas we owe a debt of gratitude and a sincere welcome home to those who served and came before us. Whereas we also recognize the long-lasting and devastating effects of the Vietnam War. Whereas the great state of Nevada proudly honors the more than 9 million Vietnam War-era veterans who served our country proudly. Now, therefore, I, Joe Lombardo, Governor of the state of Nevada, do hereby proclaim March 29th, 2025 as Vietnam War Veterans Day in Nevada, the undersigned, Joe Lombardo. And really quick, I forgot to mention two very key veterans that are in the room, Scott and Kay Hooper. Scott was actually giving me the evil eyes while I was scanning the room. I saw it. I was like, never want another Ranger mad at you, right, Sam? Never. So thank you for what you do. You continue to serve. You continue to set the example. Captain Brown, you also. Mary, Mike, thank you for everything you do. Great community. Like I said, you set the example for what we should be as service. Thank you. Thanks, sir, for having me here today.
Thank you. Hang on just a second.
Okay.
Out of a hat, Brigadier General D. Roger Dan Waters, your strong and continued support, VVA 989, and Nevada's veterans is appreciated. Thank you for speaking today, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Always good. General Waters never disappoints, and he never walks out without a gift either. Check your wallets. Now, it's now my pleasure to introduce TMCC's Vice President of Finance and Government Relations and retired Brigadier General Michael Pearl, one of the driving forces behind student veterans, veteran services, and TMC in general. He's also an Afghan war veteran. And it's been a friend of 989, and he's here to share his thoughts on honor and sacrifice. General Pearl.
Thank you. I got a few things down here.
All right.
Well, welcome everybody to TMCC. We're so glad that you could join us at this phenomenal campus location. On behalf of our president, Dr. Karen Hilgerson, she would just like to send her regards and how honored she is to have everyone in this room today, so thank you. Good morning. Thank you all for being here today in this important remembrance ceremony. I'm looking around the room today, and I want to thank all of those veterans in this room. It means a lot to us. From every war that we've had since World War II, it's amazing. It's truly gratifying to see the support in this community. There's so many in this room that I know and I've served with, and it brings a special place to my heart to see you today, as always. If you knew me before, I was a little bit rougher. I was a little bit harder. And over the last 2 years, I've been able to reflect on service. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today. But again, I want to thank TMCC today. The faculty, the staff, the students. This is my new family. This is where I belong. This is where I continue to serve. TMCC's value to Northern Nevada, all of Nevada, it's truly remarkable. I see it every day. I get to be part of a great team. And I just want to say how proud I am to be a family member here at TMCC. I also want to recognize two very important people that have been in my life for a little bit now, Bridget and JR. They're both fully committed to supporting all of our veterans. They're amazing people. They dedicated their lives to advocating for all of us. So thank you. Thank you very much. They're true friends. I value their commitment that they display every day. I can never say no to you, Bridget, so that's when you ask me for anything. So Bridget called me a few months ago. I was sitting there on my couch, and I get this call from Bridget, and she had sent me an email, and I ignored her email. Actually, Felipe had sent me an email. And so she called me, and she said she wanted me to speak about my experiences in the military related to Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan. She also asked me to talk about two very important topics, honor and sacrifice related to that service. I don't follow instructions that well most of the time, so I'm gonna deviate just slightly. So in order to do that, I'd like to share with you why service to our country is so important to me. It's a story about family, my family. It's one family out of millions that served this country. It's one story out of millions that have served to defend the United States of America. They put aside their personal welfare, their desires, and committed to a higher purpose, protecting our freedoms and liberty. So I brought two documents with me today. Try to get through these. So The first one says, Citation of Honor to Staff Sergeant Francis R. Pearl, who gave his life in the performance of his duty May 25th, 1945. He lived to bear his country's arms. He died to save its honors. He was a soldier, and he knew a soldier's duty. His sacrifice will help to keep aglow the flaming torch that lights our lives, that millions yet unborn may know the priceless joy of liberty. And we who pay him homage and revere his memory in solemn pride rededicate ourselves to a complete fulfillment of the task for which he so gallantly has placed his life upon the altar of man's freedom. Signed, H.H. Harold, General of the Army, Commanding General, Army Air Force. I'd like to read one more document from my grandfather. It says, in grateful memory, Staff Sergeant Francis R. Pearl, who died in the service of his country in the European theater. He stands in the unbroken line of patriots who have dared to die that freedom might live and grow and increase its blessings. Freedom lives, and through it he lives, in a way that humbles the undertakings of most men. Signed, Harry Truman, President of the United States. Those are always tough to get through. This was my grandfather. He was a gunner on a B-24 Liberator that was shot down on a bombing mission over Austria during World War II. I never got the opportunity to know him, nor did my father. But because of his sacrifice, we have the freedoms we have today. He lived to bear his country's arms. He died to save its honor. These are powerful words. I keep both of these documents in my home in a place of honor and remembrance. I display them because they remind me of a call of duty, a call to duty. Even when I might not feel great, I'm not motivated, I'm having a bad day, they remind me of the greatest sacrifice and that we can endure anything for a greater purpose that is honorable. My father also joined the United States Navy in 1962. His name was Michael Francis Pearl. He served his country with honor. He served in Vietnam, I'm going to not pronounce this right, at the Nha Be Naval Logistics Support Base, 10 miles southeast of Saigon. He served his country honorably, and like all service members, he was willing to sacrifice his time, his energy, his health for over 23 years in the United States Navy. My mother also served in the United States Navy for over 6 years before she decided to leave service in order to have me. Back then, they couldn't stay in the military. So I'm very proud, and my mother's still alive, and I'm very proud of what she's done. So my family inspired me to serve. They all served for a higher purpose. They knew the value of honor, and that through their service, they'd be protecting our country's freedom. They all willingly sacrificed without a second thought. It was the right thing to do. I always say to myself, do the right thing. Every day I ask myself this question: am I doing the right thing that honors the sacrifices my family and other veterans have made? So my family's stories, their sacrifice and honor, is what inspired me to serve. My son, who is at UNR currently and recently finished a 2-year paramedic program at this school at TMCC, he plans to serve. Which path he decides to choose and which branch is up to him. We have a lot of conversations about that. In our family, as in so many service families, sacrifice and honor in support of our country is a cherished value. So I commissioned from the University of Nevada, Reno ROTC program in 1995. I entered active duty as an armor officer and was full of pride to serve my country. Literally, it was in my blood. Since the age of 5, I grew up on Naval Air Base, or Fallon Naval Air Base. I was surrounded by aviators, Marines, naval aviators. One of my cousins was a Marine aviator in a Harrier, and I loved aviation, and I went into the Army. So I told this story today about my family because my service, the Army, was my family. Every day I was surrounded by service members with the same dedication and commitment. Like my grandfather's generation, my father's generation, when our country called, this current generation stood up to defend our country with honor and sacrifice during both Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom, and continues today in our operations in the Middle East. And I want to thank General Waters today. I know that we have a unit serving over there right now, and our prayers go out to them, and many of my friends and fellow service members are over there, and I'm very grateful for what they're doing. So they sacrificed their lives and their health so that millions yet unborn may know the price of joy and liberty. That was in my grandfather's certificate that he received. It means a lot to me. I reflect on it daily. It hangs on my office also. I look at it and I remember their sacrifices and that nothing can get us down. There's nothing that we can't overcome. So in 2011, I was part of an amazing team, which I know that there's some members in here that were also part of that amazing team. From the Nevada Army National Guard that deployed with over 550 soldiers in support of Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan. This team, for over 4 years, was my family. We sacrificed together. The bond that we created through shared sacrifice is strong. I always called that the shared suck. You're gonna endure being hot, tired, wet, cold, hungry together, and you're gonna come out and you're gonna win. It's strong. It's as strong as our family bonds. I call the members of the 422nd Expeditionary Signal Battalion my family. We trained together for almost 2.5 years and deployed to Kandahar Air Base, supporting operations in over 40 locations across Afghanistan. Our team swelled to over 1,000 soldiers, coalition forces, while we were deployed. Our mission was vital to the warfight. Without the expertise of those soldiers, there was no network. There was no communications. We had a vital role to play, and this team that I still call family today sacrificed and served with honor defending our country's values. We are a winning team. We are a tight family bonded through service and conflict. We deployed home in 2012 and spent another 6 months together making sure that we were safe and that we were going to recover and reintegrate into our communities and our families. It was an honor to serve with them, each one of them. So as I reflected yesterday and the day before, as I thought about my thoughts, Bridget, I reflected a lot about family service, my service, those that I have served with. I've realized that each generation that faces conflict will step up. They will sacrifice in support of defending freedom and liberty and the will to do it with honor. Thank you again to all of our veterans, family members, and community members, and thank you to TMCC. Thank you.
Brigadier General Michael Pearl, Nevada National Guard, retired with sincere appreciation for your support of Nevada's veterans. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate it. We're doing pictures? Thanks.
Thank you, General Pearl. Our next presenter is United States Air Force Iraq veteran, Dr. Spring Melody Myers. Last month, Dr. Myers attended the premiere of a recent documentary dealing with the effects of war titled Brothers After War. Several of our chapter members also attended the same showing and met Dr. Myers at the VA's outreach table in the theater lobby. They were gushing when they tracked me down and they said, "Oh, JR, we just met the most wonderful, outstanding lady in the lobby, and you need to ask her to speak at our upcoming Vietnam Veterans Remembrance." I said, "Oh, you mean Dr. Spring Myers? She's already booked." Not saying they squealed like Swifties, but they were happy to know that Dr. Myers was going to be on the dais tonight, so this afternoon. Dr. Myers, No pressure here, ma'am.
No pressure.
No pressure.
No blushing, no blushing. Okay, well, good afternoon and hello and welcome. I have to first say to all my fellow veterans, thank you for your service. But to my Vietnam veterans, I have 5 uncles who also served in that war. Welcome home. So why me? Well, I tried to say that when your Madam President Bridget asked me, but like many have said, you can't say no to her. And when she asked me, I said, well, sure, I say yes to a lot of things. So what's the topic? Surely suicide prevention or TBIs, PTSD, something, because I know a lot about a lot of things. I'm older than I look. But she said, no, about you, about your personal experience. Well, those are doors I usually keep closed to most people. So when she said that, in the words of Scooby-Doo, I said, ruh-roh. So that said, buckle up, here we go. As they said, I am Dr. Spring Myers. I am an Air Force veteran. I also was a part of Desert Storm, Desert Shield. So yes, I am a lot older than I look. I do recall accepting the charge. Although I come from a military family, they didn't talk about their military service in my household. Nobody did. So when I was exposed to the Air Force, I was exposed because I had decided to quit college after 3 years of school. The reason I quit is because apparently they don't give you grades for partying, which is what I was doing. And I did it well. So that said, now what am I going to do with this college and nothing else to do? So I ran into some people who were in the Air Force. And they said, first of all, you can be assigned anywhere you want. There's something called a dream sheet. You could travel all over the world, and life will be good for you. Well, I could do all those things. I'm in. So I enlisted. I went to the recruiter. He said, come on in. You got college credits. You can have a couple of stripes. Come on. Yeah, we got the dream sheet. Do your thing. I went to basic training in San Antonio. Now, at this time, it was the farthest I had ever traveled. From Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Oh, yes, I'm a little girl from Philly. Go Eagles. So that said, I am now in San Antonio. I go to tech school, and I get my first assignment. Well, I was dating this guy in D.C., so I thought I would go back to D.C. because, why? That was on my dream sheet. Well, my first assignment was Incirlik Air Base, Turkey. So I innocently said to the sergeant, well, where is this in Washington, D.C.? So with a bunch of explicatives, 4-letter words, 5-letter words, some conjunctions, I was made to understand that I was going to Turkey. So my family, like I said, we didn't talk about it much, but my mother, who was always the president of the PTA and all these kinds of things, said, well, my family actually calls me Dee Dee, they don't call me Spring. But anyway, Dee Dee, all you gotta do is tell somebody you don't wanna go. Tell them you'd rather go somewhere else. I said, well, Mom, that doesn't work that way, but okay. And my stepdad at the time said, now this is in '87. He said, aren't they fighting over there? Because they were fighting everywhere in his book. So no, they weren't. It was during the Cold War. But anyway, here I go off to Incirlik Air Base, Turkey. Sacrifice. It's hard leaving your family, right? Not to mention, as you see, I am a stiletto girl, and I wore stilettos since I was 16. So to think that I was going to have to trade them in for combat boots, to the chagrin of myself and even my family, how are you going to do that? I said, I can do it for a little while. So yes, I'm over in Turkey. Some of the sacrifices are a little hard. I don't know if you've noticed it, but I'm a female. I'm also kind of short, that's why I wear heels a lot. Things like that. So I get to Turkey, and I don't realize that what started out as chivalry, when all the men are at the MAC terminal, I don't know if some of you remember MAC terminals, I think they're there to carry my bags and do all that good stuff. No. Yes, someone did carry my bags, but it also kind of led to a little bit of harassment. So being a female in uniform is a little different sometimes. So I remember living in the barracks. We had grates at the door. I started checking feet before I could answer my door, because there was always some airman or somebody there. You don't know me, but my name is this. Can I take you out? That's actually harassment after a while, right? So my girlfriends realized that I don't answer the door anymore if I see men's feet. So they would yell on the side, "We know you're in there. Come out." And I said, "You better identify your feet then." I can joke about it now, but it was a little tough. And that was a sacrifice that I had to make. One of the other things I want to remember is that during that time, though, I was very honored to serve. I was an Airman First Class. Some of you never even heard of that rank, I know. And I worked at personnel, so I was at CBPO. I was a personnel troop. I was responsible for transitioning the evaluation program for the entire Air Force at Incirlik Air Base, and I did it well. I did briefings, I did all the stuff, I did everything I had to do. I got a lot of honors and awards. I was Airman of the Quarter, I was Airman of the Year, all kinds of good stuff. I was even promoted below the zone to Senior Airman and Buck Sergeant. How many of you ever heard those ranks? Yeah, Buck Sergeant, that's an old one. I know a lot of you don't know that. I was one of the last great Buck Sergeants. But in any event, yeah, so I was able to shine, I was able to be creative, and I was able to serve in my way. Plus, they didn't know what to do with me anyway, so they just let me do my thing. Prayerfully, luckily, I did it well. So that said, that was some of the things I really was honored about in my first assignment. Also at that assignment, I got a husband. That husband gave me a couple of children, Summer Joy and Autumn Ray. Yeah, I like a good joke. I keep it going, you know. So now, moving fast forward, comes Desert Storm, Desert Shield. We are now stationed in Spangdahlem Air Base, Germany, and I am tagged to deploy. So what happens, I have my little infant, Autumn Ray at the time. She was just a few months old. I was breastfeeding, I'm cuddling, I'm doing things, and now I have to leave her. That was hard. I was able to come back. She was a week away from being a year old. And guess what? My baby didn't know me. She wouldn't stay in the room with me unless her father was in the room. That's a little painful. And that's a sacrifice we make. I'm happy to have done it, but again, it was a little difficult to come home and your baby doesn't recognize you, doesn't want to be in a room unless her dad's there. But that's okay. We made it through. I had a toddler there as well, Summer Joy. I told Summer, Mommy's going to work away from home now. You're going to be okay. I'll be gone for a little while. So people would comfort her, and she first would tell them, yeah, my mommy's working away. And that's before we had phones and communications. You had to get a Class A line and a morale call every couple of weeks. You couldn't talk as regularly. So after a while, when you asked Summer Joy how she was doing, she said, and how her mom was, she said, well, my mom is working away from home, and she's never coming back. Dramatic. Had to. Then the story changed. After a while, she was telling people that her mother had died. I know. Same, still very dramatic child. But we made it through. I come home. I'm happy. We get reacquainted. But that's some of the sacrifices you make when you're a female in uniform. But I did it, and I was proud to do it. And I'll do it again. Fast forward, I deployed to Operation Iraqi Freedom and left a senior at home. Took her to a volleyball game and went off to Iraq. I did make it home by the time she graduated, just in time. But again, you miss, these are sacrifices and things we miss. And I know dads feel this too, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say moms might feel it a little more sometimes. Because we're that person in the house. We're wearing combat boots, but we're also managing the house. Now, my husband wore combat boots too. But if I didn't tell him every week that Autumn had a piano lesson at Tuesday, he would forget. And he had that luxury. I guess I made it easy for him. He's an ex-husband now, so it's all good. That said, other things that came about sacrificing for me was missing events in the States. I had a lot of my towards time was overseas. I was stationed in Turkey and Germany and Guam. So I couldn't make all those birthdays and weddings and funerals, right? So it was a little tough. Thank God that later on technology helped me do some things by Zoom. But overall, that's the sacrifice we make. And again, I was proud and happy to do it. Some of the other sacrifices and things that happened to me was when I was stationed in Guam, I was the flight commander for the mental health flight at this time. I should have explained to you that I was enlisted at first and got my GI Bill, got commissioned, and came back in because this is the life I love. Anyway, now I'm mental health flight commander, and I'm working at the med group, and one of my favorite mentors, Colonel Martin, 06 flight doc, he wanted to be an astronaut in his heart, so he would take every flight mission, and the B-52s came over that year from the States to do a flyover. Well, this plane crashed. All were lost, to include one of my mentors. And that was very hard and difficult for me. At that time I was an 04 major, but having someone that also looked like me and could talk to me and get me through some of the things I needed to get through was amazing, but I lost him. I became the family liaison officer, and so I worked closely with the family. His wife, his second wife at that time, she was pregnant with their first child. She was 8 months pregnant when we lost this group of strong, powerful airmen. But out of that, I was able to, and again, my commander allowed me to do it, to create a memorial garden. I had a big rock put there. We had rocks and words and Ohio State things, because he was one of the, is it Buckeyes, Ohio State? Yeah, that was him. To this day, the honor I've gotten is that I had an intern a couple of years ago go to Guam and saw the memorial. It's still there. Things like that just don't go away. As I stand before you now, having done a couple of combat tours, having served and seen a lot of things as a mental health provider, having experienced my own mental health issues sometimes, the support of my military, Air Force, family was everything, because I had to create family. My family was in the States, in Philadelphia, North Carolina, New York. But the family we made, we are still close now. Remember that baby I told you I left who wouldn't leave the room? If I, wouldn't let me be in the room alone with her. She's a lieutenant now in the Air Force. She's a med student and soon will be doctor. Actually, her last name is Hashimoto now. She's married. All of my little girls are married. But in any event, we're following in that tradition. My children have become successful in spite of the military brat life that I forced upon them. They were angry as teenagers at me, but as they got older, they thanked me for the experience. They got to live in places. They moved every 3 or 4 years, but they know different languages. They speak fluent Japanese. They speak Spanish. They knew how to hooky school and ride the trains in Japan. I guess I wasn't supposed to share everything, but hey, teenagers overseas. But in any event, they've been successful and done well in spite of my career. So I just want to end on this note, and hopefully I've given you some of what you wanted, because who can say no to Bridget Stafford? But the ultimate thing for me is that as I stand in this room with you today, you are also my family. I work with so many of you on so many different levels, and I don't worry about a thing, because I don't leave a wingman behind, a battle buddy. I appreciate every one of you. My leadership, who lets me out of the house and do these kinds of things, thank you, Mr. Telemonte. But overall, I'm honored to be here this day, because this day is just as important to me as it is to everybody in this room. And I want you, when I walk away, not to applaud me, but to applaud yourselves. The active duty, the family members, the children, everybody, because it takes all of us to defend this nation. I appreciate you, I honor you, and again, to my veterans from the Vietnam War, welcome home. Thank you.
as you might know, of course. Dr. Spring Melody Myers, PhD. Your continued support of Nevada's veterans is always appreciated. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
And for the Swifties in the audience, not bad, huh? Our next presenter is Mr. Jeff Evans. Mr. Evans is a longtime Nevada educator and three-time Gold Star family member. Becoming a Gold Star family member is admittance into a club that you don't want to belong to. And Jeff has lived with this designation since 1968. Please welcome Mr. Jeff Evans.
Former educator, I cheat with my computer. As she was saying, she was a brat. I'm an Army brat. And as much crap as the Marines get, they dress up nice. Gotta say it. So again, my name is Jeff Evans, and I'm a Gold Star family member. And I'm 56 years old, but I'm a kid. I'm a Gold Star kid, I'm a Gold Star brother, and I'm a Gold Star nephew. And my family has made the ultimate sacrifice 3 times. And I'm proud of my family and our service and our sacrifice. Now I'm going to tell you some stories, and some of those are pretty personal to me, so please forgive me if I get a little emotional. I'm going to blame it on allergies, because that's kind of what you hear from me here right now. But on October 24th, 1968, my uncle, Specialist 4 David Lynn Evans, was a 19-year-old door gunner with the Army's 117th Assault Helicopter Company based in Long An Province. He was on a rescue mission taking special ops soldiers from the 3 Corps area back to Ben Hoa. I hope I said that right. His helicopter was shot down, and as the soldiers that made it to safety to the jungle, my uncle stayed on the helicopter's machine gun laying down cover fire for them. And it was during this heroic act where my uncle was shot and killed. Again, he was 19 years old, the average age of soldiers killed in Vietnam. On November 24th, 1970, 2 years later, my dad, Specialist 6 Norman Francis Evans, was on a reconnaissance flight in Canto, Vietnam, while he was with the Army Security Agency's 156 Aviation Unit. My dad was in a fixed-wing RU-6A Beaver when they were hit by an ascending ARVN UH-1H Vietnamese helicopter. It was a catastrophic crash with no survivors. There were 4 soldiers on my dad's airplane that perished, and there were 13 Vietnamese soldiers on the helicopter that died. Dad was 23, Mom was 23, I was 2, and my brother was 1. And Dad only had 3 weeks left to go on his second tour before he was going to be able to come home. Of the 58,000 plus soldiers killed in Vietnam, 31 pairs of those soldiers were brothers. My dad and uncle were one set of the 31 pairs of brothers killed in action in Vietnam. My brother, Sergeant David Lynn Evans, assigned 1st Squadron 82nd Cavalry Regiment, felt the need to enlist after 9/11. After suffering an injury on his second tour in Iraq, he never fully recovered and passed away from complications of those injuries, and he died stateside August 5th, 2011, 10 days shy of his 42nd birthday, and my brother was named after my uncle. And I'm blessed with my beautiful wife, Dina, and my 2 boys. My oldest, Austin, is a firefighter and paramedic with Tahoe Douglas up at the lake. And my youngest, Sergeant Jake Evans, is a paramedic with RIMSA and a critical care flight medic with Nevada National Guard's 238th, the Dust-Off Unit. In December of last year, I was finally able to take the trip of my lifetime with my family. I was able to visit the locations where my dad and uncle were killed in Vietnam. Now, after over a year of paperwork with the U.S. government and the National Archives, I finally found a Vietnam vet that went the extra mile, helping me find the coordinates of where they died. So after over a year of planning, because you guys know working with the government, it took a while. After a year of planning and over 8,000 miles of travel and a lifetime of waiting, we were finally in Vietnam. So day one in Vietnam was the day we were going to figure out how to find where my uncle died. We met our guide and interpreter, it was the same guy, and we drove over 2 hours into the jungle southwest of Saigon, Ho Chi Minh City. After 2 hours of driving, we came to a stop, and I thought this might be the spot, but it wasn't. We then began walking. And after about 20 minutes of walking, we figured it was about a mile or so, on a narrow trail through the jungle, past rice paddies and swamps. Our guide said we were finally here. Now, I had looked at satellite maps of this area for so long, I actually recognized the area from the ground level. It was a surreal moment trying to imagine the helicopter crash and gunfight that took my uncle's life. Now, as we stood there, and you have to understand the area we were at, we were not a group of people that you would see in this area very often. So as we stood there, several of the farmers that lived in the 2 to 3 small farmhouses started to filter out. And this is where the story gets really crazy. One of the farmers was an older woman. So I asked our interpreter to ask her if she was there in 1968. Sure enough, she was. She was born and raised there. So I then asked our interpreter to ask her if she remembered a helicopter crash and gunfight. And as soon as he said that, she pointed right to the spot and she said October 1968. So then I asked him to tell her who I was, that I was the nephew of the soldier on the machine gun. And as soon as I said that, everyone wanted to offer us homemade rice wine, which is very good, by the way, and fruit in honor of my uncle. The woman then asked us if we had seen the memorial. So the memorial had been built for the Vietnamese soldiers that had died in the area, and according to this woman, she said, one of yours, one American. This memorial had been built. And so our guide then says, that has to be your uncle. We were absolutely blown away. And all of this happened on our first full day in Vietnam. We found the location of my uncle's death, and after all of this planning, you have to understand that you travel this far, you hope you find the right spot, you know? And we did, and we found it because we found a woman who remembered it because she was there. And we also found a memorial partly in his honor. On day 3, while discovering the location of where my dad died wasn't near as dramatic, it was still surreal and emotional and peaceful for me. Now, my dad died on an island in the middle of the Hao River in Can Tho, Vietnam. So we got on a boat at the marina, and we took a 15 to 20-minute boat ride towards the island. Once we got there, our guide helped us off the boat and started leading us on a very narrow trail through pretty thick vegetation. And the farther we went to the center of the island, the trail disappeared. It was then that I heard my wife let out a shriek, as some sort of prehistoric bug had landed on her that she had never seen before. And I looked down at my legs, and we're wearing flip-flops and shorts, and my legs from my knees down were covered with ants. I asked our guide, how much further? Because we're getting close. And he's like, it's right there, only about 10 more feet or so, it's right there. But we got to be careful of snakes. So now I hear my wife and my daughter-in-law go, snakes! And after talking to a Vietnam vet when we returned home, he said those were called 2-minute snakes. You were dead 2 minutes after they bit you. So it was then that I decided I was good with where we were. I was standing on the spot where my dad had died, where my dad had spent his last day on earth. And you know what? For not knowing my dad, I felt good. And everybody's like, oh, it's closure for you. And I don't know how it could be closure for not ever knowing him, but I felt really, really good. And I felt a connection to the dad that I never knew. Now, this island was peaceful and calm and as pretty of a green as I had ever seen. And it was hard to visualize the difference of the island on that day versus the island during the war. And after being there for about an hour and imagining my dad's plane crash, I actually felt like I had accomplished something. And I think that my dad would have been proud that I did my best, please forgive me, to find out more about him in his service in Vietnam. Now, my dad and uncle fought in a war over 8,000 miles from their home in Klamath Falls, Oregon, but died about 75 miles from each other, and I think that's pretty crazy. Now, as JR said, I spent 31 years in the great state of Nevada as an educator. I started out at Clark High School in Vegas. I worked at Carson High. I worked at Douglas High. And my last 5 years, I was the principal of Eureka Junior and Senior High School in beautiful Eureka, Nevada. And I always made it my duty, and I was trying to figure this out. 18 years, I made it my duty to put up the American flag at home football games. And I always had a student volunteer to help me. So that doesn't really sound like the student volunteered since I had them volunteer. But I had a student volunteer help me. And my last 5 years, the student that helped me was a girl named Gabby Minoletti. And I would always tell my students that putting up the flag was the most important part of the game. And so Gabby's senior year, she was my student body president. And Gabby said this about me during her commencement speech at graduation. She said that I had taught her that the game was not important. The freedom to play the game was what was important. And I never thought about it that way, and I think that's pretty cool that a kid thought of that. Now, several years ago, I met a Gold Star wife and her 2 boys. Her oldest was 1, and she was 4 months pregnant with her youngest when her husband was killed in Afghanistan in 2011. Their story is very similar to mine. Her boys are me and my brother. We never knew our dads. And their dad was killed 41 years after my dad was killed. And what that says to me is that there's generations of Gold Star kids and families that we need to take care of. Now, in my retirement, I've started a nonprofit called Highway 39 Evans Gold Star Foundation. And in 2018, the state of Oregon dedicated a portion of Highway 39 in Klamath Falls to my dad, my brother, and uncle with 3 fallen hero memorial road signs. My foundation's mission is to help Gold Star kids and Gold Star families. If you'd like to hear more about my family story, my Vietnam trip, or my foundation, I would love to talk to you more about it. We all have our stories, and our jobs are to never let people forget why we are the greatest country. We can never forget our families, and we can never forget our sacrifices. We can never forget our veterans. We must tell our stories so the next generations know them and tell them. To all of the Vietnam veterans out here, and I am so blessed that I get to say this, welcome home to you guys. God bless our veterans, our active duty, our first responders, our teachers, our Gold Star families, and God bless the greatest country in the world. God bless America. Put those back for you.
They're going to make me smarter?
No, made me dumber.
Yeah, okay. I got something for you, bud. Your continued support of Nevada's Gold Star families and Nevada's veterans is always appreciated. Thank you, Mr. Jeff Evans.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Our next presenter is the commanding officer of the Marine Corps Mountain Warfare Training Center in Bridgeport, California. Those of you that have read Colonel Doan's bio in today's program may just have noted a little thing in there. It says VVA 989 Editor's Note. That was midway through the text. I take full responsibility for writing that paragraph, condensing 23 years of the colonel's career after he was commissioned and prior to assuming command of the Mountain Warfare Training Center. One paragraph. Simply put, we just didn't have enough space to include all of his accomplishments and all of his exploits during that period of time. If you're interested in some of the information I omitted in the colonel's bio, I suggest you pick up a Tom Clancy novel, and after reading it, you can now imagine him as he takes the podium as a future CIA director and possibly President of the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to introduce Colonel Jackson T. Doan. I told you it was coming. I told you it was coming, brother.
Good afternoon. Oh, heck no. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
All right. I know we have some hoolas in here and some oorahs and some Swiftie fans and so forth.
You're going to use the microphone, sir.
First of all, can you all see me? You see me? Good. They picked me because I'm the tallest Asian you'll ever meet. You motivate me and I will motivate you. And I know as a commanding officer and a commanding officer multiple times over, I know my audience, and I know you've been listening to a lot of great talks. I'm nobody. So I'll make it as concise as possible and hopefully try to put some levity on the honor and sacrifice piece here. But for the most part, like I said, you motivate me, I will motivate you. So when I say good afternoon, you just give me a rah, okay? Good afternoon. I'm like the Asian Kevin Hart up in here. First of all, thank you so much. Thank you so much, distinguished guests, veterans, general officers, family members, Gold Star family members. It is just an absolute honor to be here. I'm humbled. And as I said, I am literally nobody. The only real significance I bring to this is one, I brought my Sergeant Major, so he keeps me in line. And Sergeant Major Kerry Wells, I'm gonna call him out. He takes my flank every time. He's gonna finish up 30 years this summer. Go ahead, stand up, Sergeant Major, go ahead, stand up. Yeah, there you go. Love him. Combat veteran, Special Forces operator. We shed a lot of blood in the same dirt. But he's the type of Sergeant Major, as many of you all know. You say good morning, Sergeant Major. He was like, what makes this morning so good? And then if it's a Marine, your facial hair and your haircut is out of regulations, and now I will kill you. That's my Sergeant Major. I love him to death. So my element here. Hashtag check all the things in any bio thing. You got to fact check all that stuff. It's probably all not true. But I will tell you, April 30th, 1975, a 2-year-old at the time, my birth name is Trung Minh Don. I was born in Saigon, Vietnam, and I was on that helicopter that left the embassy. Out of the 7,000 or so Vietnamese folks and American folks that are able to leave the embassy between the 29th and 30th, Operation Frequent Wind, I was one of them. My dad, my mother, my brother, and my sister. I was the little refugee that had no idea what was going on, not understanding the tears in my mom's eyes, not knowing that she would never go back to Vietnam again, not knowing that they left their family, not knowing that the only reason why we got a chance to escape the communist country was because my father was a Turk, and that my mother was the daughter of a province leader. And so we had the chance. Although thousands and thousands of Vietnamese folks were not able to leave, God blessed us that day and said, now it's your chance to go do something with your life. Well, little did I know where I would be now. So you look at the elements there, from going from a refugee, this poor kid that didn't have anything in life. I didn't have anything. I wore the same clothes 2 or 3 times a day. They were clean. We washed them by hand, but I was that one. I was the one that got picked on because I was Asian. I was the one that didn't have much, and I was the one that was always fighting to protect my brother and my sister, although I was the youngest one. I was the one that was always looking for a fight. I was the one that understood why my father worked 7 days a week for years straight. Because we came to this country with nothing, but this country gave us everything. We came to Camp Talega in Camp Pendleton, California, and stayed there for 90 days upon going from Guam to Hawaii and eventually to the United States. And after 90 days, they said, here's your green card. Go out there and be good Americans. We didn't know what that meant, but just survive, because we would be dead. And you may say, okay, your birth name you just told us was Trung Minh Don, and they just reference you as Colonel Jackson T. Don. Trung, my middle name, Jackson. Jackson is not Vietnamese. So when you get your green card and you get to become a naturalized, citizen with a green card, you get to change your name. So my mother, in her wisdom, was like, they must be American. So she said, Jackson sound American. My brother's name is Johnson. That's about as non-American as you can get, but that's what she thought. But my mom and my dad said, you must do everything you can because there are so many people that died for you. There are so many people that put their lives on the line. There are so many people that serve to get you here. So you have to make your life worthwhile for them. And that is something that's been ingrained in my family since I can remember. All the way to the point where I speak Vietnamese and other languages, but it's so far because the focus was to speak English, was to be a good American. And so you go from that to everything that a typical Asian family does, especially if a family is poor, like you must do something with your life. My mom said, you must be doctor, you must be lawyer, you must be engineer, you must be something, do something with your life. So I said, yes, Mom, I must do something with my life. I will try. So my brother graduated UCLA, my sister graduated San Jose, I graduated from USC, and I was valedictorian in high school and I was valedictorian in college. And 3 master's degrees later and a double engineering degree and that stuff, and going to the military and trying to be the honor grad, the top graduate of every school I've ever been to, maybe. Fact check that. But it was all because of that notion. What do you give back to those people that gave you everything? What's the cost that you can put for those that have given everything in their whole life for the sanctity of freedom for you? There's no price you can put on that. And so I find myself with an engineering degree in Silicon Valley, working as an engineer, trying to do the things that stereotypically that my family thought was right. And at one point in time I said, God, please guide me. And I don't write a speech for anything I do. I look at my time, so I got my phone here for my hack. But the main thing is I ask for God to be in my heart, my head, and my mouth. And please use me as a vessel for those, and let me honor the people that I should honor. So I go and join the Marine Corps. That's a funny story, but I'll share the whole sidebar story of how I joined the Marine Corps. But the first thing my mom says, you will die. Not because I wasn't physically fit, I wrestled in college, I was doing all those things, because that's all she knew. From Vietnam, all she knew is Marines die, and soldiers die. And you will join the Marine Corps, and they are a fierce group of men, but you will die. And she feared it. She cried for days. Said, why would you do this? You have a successful engineering career ahead of you. You're moving up in the world, and yet you want to join the military for $26,000 a year back in the day. And I was on the cusp of a 6-figure salary. Design, engineering, robotics, and a very big Fortune 5 company. And I said, I must give back. Something in my heart said I must give back. And God has a plan. God has a plan. So who would have thought this refugee, then after September 11th, finds himself in Afghanistan. Then after that, finds himself as a special operations team leader in Iraq. And the first forces in Afghanistan, for that matter, Marine forces in Afghanistan. Then as a company command in Iraq. Then as a company command in Iraq. And by that time, I'm on my 4th combat deployment, and I've seen things. And at that point, I'm like, I'm done. I'm good, God. Hopefully that was good enough. He's like, no, you're not done. You continue to serve. So I said, okay, I'll continue to serve. Then I find myself back in Afghanistan. Then I find myself fighting ISIS in Iraq. Then I find myself in classified operations. And then I find myself back in Afghanistan, where the staff sergeant that was at Abbey Gate that day was one of my sergeants. He was also killed. Then I look back and I say, well, 50 funerals later, and many more that I did not attend, I'm still here. And is it enough? Is it worth it? Who would have known God's plan that that refugee that came from Vietnam, just around 2 years old, would upon the time as a lieutenant colonel get selected for command, be the one that has the unit, 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines, which was known for its combat operations in Vietnam. And I didn't know until the day I shared this with you, JR, and you, young lady. I didn't know it that there's Vietnam in my whole unit crest. I never noticed that. The refugee comes back and commands the unit with Vietnam and unit crest for what they did in Vietnam. Only God knows that plan. And so I find myself here, looking back at all the things, referencing and reminiscing as I hear these stories, as I hear the perspective, as I hear the happiness. You see, combat, 8 times over. Yeah, I've been there. I got the t-shirt. I've done that. I shed blood in the mud. And a lot of times I said, it should be me. That should be gone. And I will put my life solely, happily on the line for any American, any service member, any veteran, anyone that needs that in their life. For he who puts his life down for another man has no greater love. And I put that in perspective now because there are those that served. There's those with the hats. There are those that have been in Vietnam that put their life on the line for me and they did not even know me. And the only thing I could do is honor them. The only thing we can do as service members, the only thing we can do, continue to serve, is to honor them and their legacy, because we do not run towards bullets for fun. We run towards the enemy, but we run because of the legacy of those that have gone before us. Those have set the legacy and history of honor for Marines' courage and commitment. Those have done the honor and sacrifice. And we also do for those that we left behind. My wife and my 2 kids here of 7 has sacrificed. So many people in this room have sacrificed. So many people have given me enough that I don't feel personally in my life that I've sacrificed enough. And as the commanding officer of Mountain Warfare Training Center, I may be in my terminal rank. I may not go anymore. If God says you're done, you're done. But I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to keep charging, and I'm going to keep fighting that, because I cannot give enough. I cannot honor enough. I cannot look on the news and see where there is trouble and strife in places I've been at before and feel good in my heart about that until I give more. And we do that with a happy heart. We do that as service members. We do that as veterans. We do that as family members. We do that as doctors. We do it with a happy heart for all the things that have been said here earlier, in particularly the thing that was closed with this country. Because this country gave me and my family everything that I have today. This country gave me and my family the opportunities to succeed. And I know in my family, we will never, ever, ever take that for granted. We will never disrespect this country. We will never disrespect the people. And we'll always put ourselves in a position that where we walk, people are safer. And understand that politics aside, politics and war is an extension of politics. And war may be coming upon us in the horizon, as history has shown. It does not matter when the heart that serves is a heart that loves their service member, to the left and right flank, to the front and to the rear, that loves their family member, that loves their country, and will support the country and what the country needs for the sake of love. And the Bible says there's no greater thing than love. So if that's all I have to give as a service member, if that's all I have to give as a Colonel of the United States Marine Corps, is love for my service member by continuing serving, love for the veterans by continuing serving, love for the family members, love for the administration, love for both parties, the political parties, for the sake of serving, then I got to find it deep down inside me to continually have that love. Because like I said, there's no greater love than when someone puts their life down for you. And at this point, there's 40-something thousand folks and 1,068 missing in action, and then 6,000 that succumbed to their wounds that did that for me. So with that being said, I told you I'd be quick. I told you I'd be concise. I got out of the notes. Am I on time, honey? All right, good to go. She usually gives me a thumbs down. You're talking too much. I'm on time. And I just want to say thank you so much again. It has been such an extreme and pleasant honor. Thank you.
Colonel Jackson C. Doan, with sincere appreciation for your service and your support of Nevada's veterans, honor and sacrifice. Thank you, Colonel.
Oh, thank you, I appreciate it.
Hurrah! One more time!
How do you top that?
Realist.
Right. It is our custom during a remembrance ceremony that we render honors to the fallen with the playing of taps. Again, we have the good fortune to have members of the Nevada Veterans Coalition. They're from Fernley, and they're going to play taps for us. So, would the audience please rise? As taps is played, remain standing and remain standing for the benediction. Veterans, render the proper hand salute for taps. Two. Madam Chaplain.
Uncover. As we leave this ceremony, we look with soreness and in faith that those represented on our wall of honor to my left, that their service and spirit will forever guide our footsteps and keep us alert to our opportunities and our responsibilities as citizens. O Lord, make us deserving of the freedom handed down to us by those who sacrificed so much. Be gracious unto us, O God, and bless us. As we depart from this place, send forth your protection to us, guard our country, so that we who are devoted to our country and to your service may be defended by your power and authority. Amen.
Please be seated. Thank you, Madam Chaplain. As we conclude the ceremony today, you should know that the Vietnam Veteran Wreath and the Iraq and Afghanistan wreaths will be taken by members of VVA 989 to the Nevada Veterans Memorial Plaza in Sparks by the Marina, where they will be displayed until they're taken down. The Gold Star wreath will be taken to the Gold Star Family Memorial at the Northern Nevada State Veterans Home, and the All Veterans wreath will be placed in the Northern Nevada State Veterans Home, inside the home. This has been another wonderful event, and I'd like to thank our speakers and our presenters once again. And I would also like all of the volunteers, the people that made this possible, please stand up. As you can imagine, there's more than a few things that go into an event of this size. VVA, associates, gentleman around here, Colonel Steve Ranson, is going to probably write good things about this, not necessarily about me, but about it. Patriot Guard riders, Veterans Coalition, signs by tomorrow for your programs and the signage. Truckee Meadows Community audio-visual team, they'll probably produce one of the outstanding YouTube videos that's going to make it, and Veteran Services and so on. So let everybody know, again, how much you appreciate it. Vietnam Veterans of America, Sierra Nevada Chapter 989. And Truckee Meadows Community College Veterans Services, thank you again for joining us. Remember, drive safely. There's a lot of old people on the road this afternoon. Thank you, everybody.